Tony Tone Show, Vintage Sound 93.1 FM. I love interviewing people, you know that, whether it's someone local or a musician or a great actor. And that's what I have for you now, friends, on the MPW Digital TV Celebrity Hotline. He is a great actor. Listen to this resume. Guy Pearce was in L.A. Confidential, one of my all-time favorites, Memento, The Proposition, The Hurt Locker, The King's Speech, just to name a few. He's got a brand new movie called Brimstone in select theaters today and on demand. Let's grab Guy Pearce on the MPW Digital TV Celebrity Hotline. How are you, sir?
Good, man. Great.
I'm so glad that you're here, buddy. I got to tell you, Guy, I think I've watched the trailer for Brimstone like 6 times, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I know that it looks very intense, so
it's not. You're not going to be singing along to the songs. Let me just put it that way. Tapping your feet to the soundtrack.
Oh my gosh, your character. How would you describe that guy? Because he doesn't seem to be. I understand he's kind of like going to bring some reckoning, maybe, or. He's a
man who is essentially just so immersed in his religious beliefs. He's a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Dutch immigrant, and he and his entire family, and in fact the whole village, probably packed up in Holland and moved to America in the 1800s, and have set up a new little community.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, actually happened in many parts of the east coast of America. And he's a man who is clearly mentally unstable. He is pursuing this young daughter of his who he sort of, she defies him, and I think that really undoes him. And so, he's a man who is clearly psychopathic and has a sort of very maniacal and egotistical outlook that he uses his religious beliefs to sort of justify. So he's a really troubled, tormented, powerful, difficult man.
Does Dakota Fanning's character speak at all in this movie or no? Without giving it away, I guess.
That's right. Yes, she does.
Okay. Because in the trailer that I've watched, she doesn't really say much, but she delivers such an incredible performance. So talk about her for a second, because that's a young person that has really, she's made a name for herself, and in a dramatic picture like this, it's almost like for some actors and actresses, you probably look forward to it because you can kind of flex some muscles that maybe you don't get to use that often. But working with her, what was that like for you?
Well, it was great. For a couple of reasons. One, because we'd worked together in 2007 as well on another smaller film that didn't really see the light of day, unfortunately. But I was very impressed by just how mature Dakota was back then. And then, of course, to work with her again on Brimstone, she's a very smart young woman. She's very talented. She's very down to earth and realistic. She just doesn't want to waste time with things. And I just found her incredibly impressive as a person, not just as an actress. And, she's meant to spend a lot of this film quite harrowed. But also, the interesting thing for her character is that she's not just playing someone who's tormented. She's playing someone who's tormented but knows there's a better life for herself, knows that there's, with tenacity and with perseverance, as well as hope and a positive outlook on the world, there can be a better life for herself. But what she has to go through to get there is obviously traumatic. So Dakota delivers a really uplifting performance, I think, in the face of, what she's had to deal with, and obviously in the face of this horrendous father that she has.
I don't know who did the cinematography on this movie, but from what I've seen, it looks like it's shot so well. And I know that that's kind of a nerdy thing to reference, but I always appreciate kind of how a picture is painted. And I know that with movies like Brimstone, it's got to be important, and especially for you, Guy, because you have to immerse yourself in this character, but you also have to get into this world. And, give us some thoughts on that, like when you... Because it's down to like wardrobe and dialect and how people interact with each other, right? You really have to almost lose yourself, essentially.
Well, and I'd like to lose myself in things as much as that's the whole point of it, to be honest. So, anything that can help is helpful. And whether that's great cinematography or, as you say, really specific costumes and a look that you've got going on. And, it's so interesting as an actor understanding the tone of the movie that you're making and really getting a sense of the world that is being created, not just there on set, but the world that the audience is meant to believe. And as an actor, to really understand that, I think, is the most important part of it. Because then, you know, sometimes you can say, well, look, in this scene, I can actually portray this. You know, if you've got the camera pushing in on me into a big, massive close-up, you don't need me to turn into camera and show that I'm thinking about something. The fact that you're pushing in on me is going to be enough. And so then I understand what I need to do with my performance in order to make it realistic and work. So, you know, understanding Martin's vision and the cinematographer's palette and how he was sort of painting that picture, as you say, was really important, you know. And of course, it's fantastic when you do a period film and the costumes are all very different and it's a totally different look that you've got going on. It's great fun, you know.
And especially, I don't know where you shot in it, if it was warm or cold, but when you're wearing like what looks to be like heavy wool, I'm sure it gets a little hot at times.
Well,
right?
we did the first part of the movie in Germany in the middle of 2015, so it was summer, and then we all took a couple of months off and we came back at the end of the year and filmed the winter section in Hungary.
Wow.
Where it was obviously snowing and a lot colder. So we got to experience some interesting parts of the world.
Guy, I have to tell you that if we pivot for just a second, L.A. Confidential is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I just wonder, you know, that's I can't believe it's 20 years old. I think I've owned it in every way, from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. When you're doing a movie like that, and the cast is so strong, but it's just, how do I say, it's such a beautiful, dark, twisted movie. At the time when you're shooting it, do you get the sense that this is going to be a big movie that people are going to enjoy 20 years later? Because it's really something that, like, I can't recommend it enough, and there's a lot of people that when they tell me they haven't seen a movie like that, I'm like, just go get it right now. Like, it's that good.
Yeah, look, it was hard for me to imagine that far ahead while I was shooting the film. And look, you know, honestly, it was my first American film, and so I was sort of overwhelmed by the fact that I was just even making an American movie, let alone a good one. And it wasn't, I mean, I knew it was a great script and I knew we had great actors, but I've worked on things before where you can have great scripts and great actors, but it just doesn't work. So you tend not to sort of think ahead about how it's going to be perceived. But I know that when we had that first screening of it, when they showed a rough cut of the movie, I went with my agent and we watched it, and the movie finished and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is a really powerful, great film. And Curtis Hanson, to me, was one of the great directors of our time, you know, who unfortunately we lost last year. So it was a real honor for me to be part of that film, and particularly a real honor for me to be part of that film as my first American film.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good performances. And then I just want you to talk about working with Chris Nolan in Memento, because that's another one that is so...
Yeah, I mean, you don't get much better than that, really. And you know, to sort of be there with Chris on that early film of his. I mean, he'd made a film before in London called Following, which is just brilliant, but he shot it himself. And so Memento was his first American film, really. To be with him on that and to watch his genius kind of unfold was a real thrill. And, you know, I mean, I felt equally as lucky to be part of that. Obviously, I was sort of carrying the story on that one, but the film itself is the star of the show. You know, the structure of that film and the way in which Chris put it together and tells that story really was the shining light. And not to sort of be self-denigrating, but I was really lucky to be part of such a great piece of work, you know. And I've never done a film before where the finished film is so close to the original script.
Wow, that's surprising to hear that.
Yeah, it had to be the way he wrote it. You know, you couldn't go in and re-edit it, and you know, so he wrote that film as you see it.
That's great. I love the choices you've made, and it seems like with Brimstone and it being selected for the Venice International Film Festival, it's getting great reception. It's in select theaters and on demand today. Isn't it interesting how 20 years ago LA Confidential comes out and people are seeing it in theaters and then buying it, and here we go, fast forward, and I could, in one press of a button, Guy, on my phone, I could watch Brimstone instantaneously. Isn't that what are your thoughts on that? I'm old school in the sense we have a beautiful movie theater right down the road. I love going to the theater, but I also enjoy being able to have a lot of content at my fingertips. What are your thoughts on that as an actor?
Well, look, I'm a bit the same as you. I'm old school as well, and part of me thinks if a movie comes out, you should go to the cinema and watch it at the cinema. But, you know, I'm not a prude. I also get that a lot of people can't find the time to get to the cinema, and, you know, they'd rather sit at home and watch it on their big screen TV, and fair enough, because I do that as well. And I think it's unfortunate to watch something like Brimstone on your phone just because you miss the sheer landscape. But at the same time, it's a little bit like listening to MP3s. I get that for a lot of people, particularly of a younger generation, if that's what they know, then it's all relative. Mm-hmm. So they listen to an MP3 and think they're hearing all frequency bands and enjoying them, when if they don't know what a record player sounds like through a massive, fantastic stereo system, they don't know what they're missing out on. So to watch Brimstone on your phone, if that's what you're used to doing, then fine, go ahead and do it. You know, so I think I'm prepared to move with the times and with technology, but personally, I'd rather sit in a cinema and see a movie on a massive screen and really get swept up by the visual perspective, you know.
Absolutely. And there's something about, you know, experiencing something with a room full of people that are there by their choice. You know, it's not like they're randomly there. They're prepared to have an immersive experience and really get lost in and real, you know, I've been watching movies for a long time, and if I can get lost in something and take away from it feeling good and that was like worth my time, then that's all I need, and that's exactly how I felt watching the trailers for Brimstone.
Absolutely, and I think there is something about the size of a screen. You know, if that's the biggest thing that you're looking at in front of you, whereas if you're looking at your phone and that's that big, and you look off to your left or your right, and there's real life going on that's 50 times bigger, then suddenly that cinematic experience isn't what it used to be. So
yeah. It's true. You know what they're going to do, Guy? They're just going to make phones bigger and bigger.
That's right. I think it's so funny the way that there's always this battle about things getting smaller but getting bigger at the same time. You know, let's make this technology smaller, but how do we make the screen bigger? Put these goggles on, and that'll do it.
Oh, I'm never going to put goggles on. No way.
I'm never going to put goggles on either.
Oh, well, listen, buddy, I know you're busy this morning. I wish you continued success. Brimstone looks fantastic. Everybody should see it in select theaters today and on demand. Guy Pearce, have a great weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. Good to talk to you.
Take care. Bye.